Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome my main man, Jonni Shreve, college football player, IFBB Pro, personal trainer, conditioning coach, self-proclaimed comedian, musician, and fellow YouTuber. So, Johnny, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Awesome
Yeah,
having
man.
you on. So, let us know where you're from. And before we have to get started, we have to let people know. I mean, this is a kettlebell-focused podcast, and the way we got connected is I was reviewing one of your kettlebell videos, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then you comment and you were like, hey man, I like what you did. Then we got connected and it was like, okay, let's have a conversation on the pod, right?
yes, yeah.
Awesome. So Johnny, give us your background, where you're from, what are you doing, and what's your space in that world?
Okay, well, you said kind of like most of it in a nutshell, but I'm from Windsor, Ontario originally. It's the most southern part of Canada. It's literally right under Detroit, Michigan. So we're
Mm,
like right close there. I moved away. Long story short, I lost a lot of scholarships. Made some bad decisions. Got a
mm,
second chance. Ended up being out here as an adult student at Nova Scotia. I've been all over Canada, and I've basically been running. I was running away from failure, to be
mm,
honest, and that led me all the way here to the Atlantic part of Canada. And I played football at the university here, St. Mary's University. It was one of the best football schools in Canada.
mm.
And then didn't make it to the CFL like I wanted to, and it was heartbreaking. And at the end of the last game of the season, I used to have a bunch of like when I played college football, I always have people like, hey man, why don't you bodybuild? You want to bodybuild? I'm like, I'm not wearing a banana hammock. There's no way I'm doing that. That's dumb.
Mm,
Whatever.
mm.
And the last game, I look at my broken finger. So if you guys definitely see me like this, I'm like, yeah, my finger's broke. That's from football. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
And I'm like, what am I gonna do next? And I remember a bunch of bodybuilders, and I had some friends that were like, national champions. And I messaged them like, hey, when's that next bodybuilding show? And they're like, it's coming up in March. So I was like, okay, cool. So like, I'll do it. And then I dove right into it. And then literally 10 years later, here I am
Bam.
now as a professional football player. I wish professional
I
bodybuilder.
wish.
I wish, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Second
Yeah.
chances.
Mm,
But yeah, so
mm,
professional bodybuilder. I got to become a pro, not in football, but this is like my second chance. And then I've been using the last 10 years. This is actually a decade. 10 years ago, this year was when I was about 8 weeks out from my first no, what was it, March, April? I was 4 weeks out from my first bodybuilding show
mm,
10 years ago today, which is
mm.
pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah,
That,
yeah. So
today,
today,
from this.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. There's
Wow.
there in like tomorrow it will be weigh-ins.
Mm.
In four like in
Mm-hmm.
sorry for 4 weeks. Sorry, tomorrow will be like 4 weeks out, and then you know what I mean. It was
Crazy. Yeah.
nuts thinking about it now. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's, and then I got into bodybuilding, and I was using it my YouTube channel when I started my YouTube channel like this one. I had one before for my highlights for
Mm-hmm.
my CFL training camp for
Mm-hmm.
my pro camp and whatnot. And I started this one in 2012, right after my first bodybuilding show. And I was like, I'm gonna use this platform so people can see
Mm-hmm.
somebody go, get second chance and like turn their life around and blah blah blah. I just
Yeah.
got through drug addiction and this and that, and like people will follow me and they'll see this story and whatever, and no one saw anything for years. like it
Yeah.
wasn't until like maybe like last year, or really like 2 years ago when the pandemic happened.
Mm.
um I had 800 followers as subscribers, and I was like, I'm gonna try to get 1,000. Like, let's just try and get 1,000 by April. And then by the April of 2019, I had 10,000. And then here I am now. So
Wow.
I went years of like, now I did become a pro in those years. So like all these, I was a top amateur. The second I got on the stage, like I was expecting this like glamorous career that everyone would know. I'd be all over,
Yeah.
whatever. And then it
Wow.
didn't go that way. But like, you know what?
Wow.
It did the way it went the way it did, and I wouldn't change a thing.
And we have to
Yeah,
make the best out of it, right?
yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
it's fascinating. I like your story. I had a similar experience. So that's why I want to ask you in that regard with the second chance. I mean, and CFL, that's the Canada Football League, I'm
yeah,
assuming, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you took that second chance, you took that plunge into bodybuilding. right? And you've become a professional with the IFBB, right?
Yep.
So how did that come about? And how do we have to imagine for people who follow bodybuilding, let's say like peripherally, but not that as intense? And how do we have to understand, how do you become an IFBB pro in that regard?
So probably most people will probably be it's probably in Europe will kind of relate to me more so than the NPC, which is in the States. NPC is basically like the amateur. They don't hand out, they award way more pro cards, like way more pro cards. In Canada, it used to be the CBBF. It's the same as a UK BFF, the same fetters, the same person. Rafa DeSantos was the head overall of that, along with Jim Manning, whatever. And we would award one pro card a year.
Wow.
One. And then there would be like a runner up or second pro card, depending. And that would basically be like, if you weren't getting it, if you're a middleweight, you were never winning that pro card. Like you had to be either a heavyweight, a super heavyweight, and if you were really good at one point, a light heavy, because Greg Doucette won his light heavy. He was a Canadian, but like he got the second pro card. So like every year you had to win your class and then win overall to get your pro card. So I was basically top 3 from 2012. No, 2012. My first show was this year. My first nationals was this year. Was this year 10 years ago, and I placed 8th. The other people before me were all professional. And then the year after that, 3rd. The year after that, 2nd. The year after that, 2nd. The year after that,
you
3rd.
climbed the ladder, huh? All right.
Yeah, and then I won. And that's what basically was like. We would go every year, every one of us, like guys like Chris Bumstead, Regan Grimes, like we would, Henry Pierre. There's a bunch of great Canadians, Antoine Vaillant, battling for one pro card. We would all know that there's only one pro card going out, and there's this
heavy competition, man. Wow.
It's a crazy. That's what made us really good, like resilient bodybuilders. And I think that for me, coming from like football and then that not working, because I always say like whenever you get a second chance, it's gonna be way harder than the first one. I think that's literally like life's way of being like, I'm gonna make sure that you're gonna take the second chance seriously. So I'm not gonna make it easy as the first chance was, because first chance you get, like things kind of like fall into play in your life because of how you're living or whatever. And if you blow that first chance, the second one is like it's not as easy because you got to go through all of that of what you lost before. And then the process was me going into this league that was opinionated. It's judged based on opinion, and there's no like point system of like, oh, you scored more points. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you're going through like a mental. You either get stronger mentally or you get torn mentally. And then and that I think was really good for me.
Because it's not right in the judging system. It's not hard science. It's not that you can tell, okay, listen, the width of your lats was approximately 5 inches short. No, it's an opinionated system. And like you said, then you have to really take the heat, take the losses, or be like, okay, I was treated unfairly. Okay, next year I gotta do it again. Yeah. Is that what you're referring to, right?
It's basically it. It's like when you lose, you either like, and I was very good at I was very good at separating my emotions with the sport. Yeah. Like I came from a real sport, I would say. And for me, it's like, you learn as a team play athlete, you learn how to lose and you learn how to win. Cause it's like you win or lose, you go on the next week, no matter what. So that kind of like, that's always there. You know what I mean? So I was never like down, but for me, it was always like, I would take it completely serious. And then as soon as I would take my placing, I wouldn't give myself praise much at all, more so than like, this is what we got to work on. And then I get to work, that kind of thing, but I was never oh my God, my worth is placed on, is guaranteed by my placing. I'm like, no, it's not a very thing, but that is a very common thing in bodybuilding, that people can't separate their physique from a placing. So they think that their worth is their placing. Yeah. So if they lose, they weren't good enough. They're not good enough. You know what I mean? Wow. That's a very common thing. Wow. Especially from the amateur, even all the way to the top pros. It's pretty blatantly
really.
Obvious. Yeah.
I mean, something that I see, and that probably we have all seen, is Phil Heath's behavior to a certain extent.
Yeah.
where you're sometimes like, listen, man, you're Mr. Olympia, and you have won. He won how many times he won it?
7.
Seven times, right? So you're a pretty decent. You're a monster in that
You're
game,
the
right?
best.
You're the best. So you take that title, and all the heat that is coming towards you, and all the critique, you have to somehow. That's something that you learn as a YouTuber.
Yeah.
The critique can be, the constructive critique is really uplifting and really elevates your knowledge,
Yeah.
and the destructive critique is just, you have to zone out.
I look at, yeah, I totally agree. I look at it like, our sport, like I look at a sport like if it's a professional sport, then I put it on par with every other professional sport. And then I look at how would the athlete, parallel to them or comparable to them act in their sport. So it's like every sport, LeBron, LeBron is probably isn't a good example, but I'll say Tom Brady or who else? They're top out. You've never seen them engage with fans to say whatever it is, unless it's at a place of like, an autograph. You never hear Tom Brady or a top athlete somewhere say, or get into the comment section arguing with somebody because they had an opinion on. It's like, like that's how I look at them. Like, that's why I don't do it. Like, you know what I mean? And if and you do it to a level if you can take it, but you got to get out of the comment section, or you got to have some thick skin and be honest about it. You know what I mean?
And even in the bodybuilding world, where you are judged superficially, you have to have some solid value system inside your body that can really deflect this negative criticism, or even when somebody's judging you or judging your form, and you're like, okay, maybe I see it that way, so I have to adjust. Or maybe I see it differently, but hey, I want to win that card, so I have to adjust, right? Exactly. But it's never right. It has nothing to do with you as a person.
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah.
Wow. But you still see it. It's rampant, huh?
It's very. I mean,
wow.
You can literally just watch it and just see how within the athletes, you have athletes that will complain that athletes are competing too much. And that literally was the first I was introduced to bodybuilding. Like when I first started bodybuilding, there was I was automatically immediately put into a rival with Greg Doucette because he won all the time, and everyone was so upset that he was competing again. And
really,
yeah, and I'm like, and I'm coming from a sport. I'm just like, I'm playing at the highest level I can play at before I become a pro, and that's like, when you win all the time, that's just the goal. Like you should be winning all the time. Like there's not a chance where like, and I was on a team that won. My last game was our first loss in like 20 something years in like, championships. So like, I'm like, what sport am I getting in where people are mad because someone's winning all the time? You know what I mean? And then you see it, and you see this year, last year people complained about Ian Valera doing too many shows, taking placings and the spots from Olympia. And I'm like, if you can't beat them, you don't belong in Olympia.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it was within the athletes, and it's also within outside of the, with the comments and everything else. They get so, emotionally attached to it, where it's like, I look at it as like, it's great. All of it is great. Like all of it is, nobody talks about nobody's. So it's like, enjoy it, take it, enjoy the heat. But there's going to be, you're going to get it. You're going to get it no matter what. You gotta be,
You know what that reminds me of? I think I have read this, and I'm paraphrasing. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but I think it is. The information is accurate to some extent. Kaz, do you know what's his name? Kazmaier, the strongman. Kazmaier. They call him Kaz, right? So he. I think that was maybe 90s, 80s, or I don't know. But he was competing back in the day in the strongman when strongman was really that fringe sport, right? I mean, now it's all over the world, right? But it was fringe to a certain extent. I'm not as familiar with the sport, but to make a long story short, Kaz, I think, was barred from competing because he killed everybody.
Yeah.
He was too strong.
Right.
And I think he barred him from a couple of championships.
Yeah.
And I think I love what you're saying. It's like, listen, this dude or this gal, these are the best guys, or that's the best one. All right. So you want to step up and take their place, beat them.
Yeah.
And if you can't, stay out of sight.
Yeah.
Or keep trying, but don't. That's crazy, right? Imagine that would be like if LeBron James said, okay, or Tyson Fury, he'd be like, okay, with Deontay Wilder, take it.
I'm winning too much. I want it. He's got to win too.
Yeah, I'll let him hit me now.
Like what?
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? Like, come on.
It's crazy. But I think it ties into this mentality that we live in, that people are entitled to, or people believe they are entitled to a spot, or they're entitled to winning or whatever, man. And wow.
Yeah, it's no.
Yeah.
No. Like,
No.
you gotta you have to earn it. Like the effort. If you put an effort, like you see someone putting an effort, like maximum effort towards something they love and do, and they don't get all of that, you praise them for the effort, but you only get the goal when you deserve it. Like if you win it, like I'm not a fan with the participation medals.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah,
because like participating for most leagues, you paid, so you're paying for that medal. You know what I mean? Like the medal that that you get is the one that you worked really hard for, and you worked harder than everybody else, or just as hard, but your strategy was that much, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah,
you earned and same thing in life, just like a job. You don't just go to I got the best job, I'm now CEO, I don't need to be I don't need to be just an employee, I'm going to be CEO immediately. It doesn't work. It never works. I mean, like, if your family is good, owns a business, you can just whatever. But like for the most part, nothing in the real world, I would say, says, hey man, you deserve it just because you should.
Most definitely. It's earned. It's meritocracy. It's either you merited for it. So, and I'm on that same page. I love what you said though. You're saying, listen, I think everybody involved can be praised for the effort that they put in. I mean, that's awesome. Hey, listen, you showed up, you did the job, you did what it. That's awesome. That's great. I mean, there's a lot of people who didn't or who don't engage in what you do. Awesome. But there's only one person who gets the title.
Yeah.
And I also come from that point of view when somebody, I mean, take YouTube, for example. This is such a crowded place. And that's my next question that I'm having. And your YouTube journey, how you took it from the 10K. I mean, if I understand it correctly, right, from 2012 to 2019, you was just a little bit, not much going on, right? And then it blew up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think, and that's the story that I want to get into, but just prefacing this, I see it as a YouTuber myself, how you gotta put in the content. Yeah, you might get a viral hit maybe, and you can't even control it. You just do your best every time. And somebody said it's like a lottery. You put out a video, maybe something hits. But you have to, your expertise just has to stand out.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, you never stand out from the crowd. It's impossible because it's so saturated.
Yeah.
So what, your YouTube journey, let us know what happened, man.
So it's funny because I went to university for criminology and sociology, and my social degree, like I did a double concentration, and my social degree was like, they're very like, you can do basic interchange courses. Like they both counted for each other because they're so close. But we did a lot of I was getting in my last year a lot of like social media stuff. And I knew that this boom was coming because I remember the word selfie coming out and actually being coined an actual term. And I remember going through university and being like, and then hearing about it a year after, basically, because 2011, I graduated in December, and then my convocation was 2012, in May. So I just finished December, and this boom of Instagram started really coming up, and I remember selfie. Yeah. So I was like, this is the thing I'm gonna do. Yeah. And but I didn't understand it. Like I didn't really get how it actually worked. So I put in content. Like I like my first bodybuilding show I got lucky, and the main sponsor of the show sponsored me, and then I was my sponsor for 7 years. So right away, I had this like, I had the means in a sense of having content because I had to do product stuff and workout, whatever. But I didn't know. I also didn't have the money at all to be able to afford anything proper to do it. So like, I remember my first big break I had when I actually got money was I coached one guy who paid for his months up front, and I could afford to buy my first MacBook. Before that, I didn't have a computer because I could afford food before that. So I got into this with this MacBook, and I was doing like little bits of, but I didn't know. So I put all this effort into it. It would be like road to the Arnold's, road to nationals, this, this and that. I'd be taping myself. Like I did all of it on my own. Like I would try to find people who I make deals. I'm like, hey, I'll give you some bucks of protein if you film me. And I'll work for a bit, and then all of a sudden,
give us some bucks of protein.
Literally, I'm paying protein because my sponsor gave me so much shit. Like I would get like loads, and I was like, hey man,
wow,
I'll give you this, whatever, if you do film me. And then I would go work, and then the person found out something else. So it was never consistent. And it was like the point where it was just like, I was getting sick of doing YouTube stuff because it was like, I'm putting in time, and it, like in hindsight, we know how much time you actually have to put into putting out content.
Massive. Yeah.
And I'm doing this on my own. And I finally, I worked my way up to trying to make deals and hustle, like buy a better, camera or whatever. And then all this work's going in, and then I'd be like 100 views. And I'd be like, oh man, like 56 views. And you're just like, well, why am I 6 weeks out from a show trying to film? I'm tired. I'm like, I'm not doing. So I'd be like road to whatever up until like maybe 4 weeks out. And then I'd be like, screw this, no one's watching it. I'm not going to waste my time. This is dumb. You know what I mean? And then the pandemic happened. And I was already kind of like, and I started working with Greg's channel was starting to do okay. Greg was like, he had a channel, like he would always post all his videos and, his workouts and this and that. And I used to live with them. So when I moved out and I moved with my wife and whatnot, I always started to help him with his, with editing, because I knew how to edit. I was a techie guy, and he's not techie whatsoever. So I was editing for him, showing him how to edit and then showing how to do it. And I was doing a few videos with him. And then I got a job at a gym. And then Greg's channel went, like, he got his brother to help him take over the editing. And then his channel started just going boom, boom, boom. Yeah. And I was like, I was helping him out with some advice here and there. And it was just going, he was doing more and more and more and more. And he'd always be like, hey man, you just got to do this. You got to do this. It's like, just take just like pay someone to help you with your plans or do the, or, he's giving me the advice of how to like, and I just, at the time I was in this comfort zone because I got a job at a gym, and I was like, I was a 40-hour plus a week coach. Like I was busy, busy.
Most definitely.
Year. Yeah. Like that's where my coaching comes from. I've been coaching. So it was this like good job I had. I'm going to do this, I'll do some videos here and there, whatever. And then pandemic shut us down. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try to do this thing. I was like, I'm just trying to do whatever, just trying to do this right. So I put a little content here and there. Greg would be in the videos, whatnot, and my views would go up a bit. And then I was going to do a show on the California Pro, and it got canceled. And I was like 12 weeks out. So I was like, well, this sucks. I'm not going to waste my time, not do the show. So I might as well. And I already started doing the episodes. I call it Becoming Leaner Than Greg Doucette. And that was my thing was like, Greg was always like, guy, like he's always freaking lean. Like the guy's lean all the damn time. So I basically was like, because I'm going to be leaner than you. It's really organic. I'm like, that's going to be like, well, I'm leaner. If I'm leaner than you, he's like, if you're ever leaner than me or as lean as me, you're going to win a show. And I'm like, for sure, whatever. So 2 weeks in, show gets canceled. I'm like, well, this sucks. So I was like, you know what? I'll just continue the journey. Yeah. But I'll literally do a competition against Greg in like 10 weeks. So I kept this thing going, and then it was shut down. So we couldn't do anything in our area. Everyone couldn't go to the gyms, but I have a little gym in my basement, and Greg's house was just being built at the time. So there's no gym. And he's like, can I come to your gym? Because you're only allowed one person, like one family to be able to come over or whatever. So I was like, yeah, for sure, do that. And his channel was doing really good. So I was like, this is great. Like, he's like, yeah, I need to come over and we can do episodes, whatever. And I'm like, that makes sense. So, every other day he'd be over and I'd do a video with myself and him. And then that got me into the habit of doing putting out more content.
Yeah.
So when I was shut down for like, we were shut down for like 3 months, and I was just putting out content, and I was getting the feedback, and I was like, I'm not bodybuilding right now, and I'm not even training, because I'm doing a lot of like this kind of videos kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm getting views, and I'm like, I've been doing gym videos for I don't know how long, and now people are listening because I'm just talking freely and openly about whatever.
It's crazy, right? You cannot.
It's nuts, because I was sitting there, I'm like, this is the video I've been supposed to be doing. Like, I've always wanted people to watch me train. I was like, what the heck? I watched, like Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler, and Flex Lewis, and I'm like, I want to do those videos. And I'm like, I do a video talking about SARMs or whatever, or like the danger of this or being open up, whatever, and like views are flying up. And I'm like, I remember at one point I was like, one video didn't get the views I wanted, and I was like, give your head a shake, Johnny. Before you got no views and you're mad because you got 1,000 views in an hour. I was like, So the thing was, again, I'm like everyone else, I had the comfort blanket, because when the gyms opened back up, I could go back to my job and get that check. What was still a good check. It was a really good check. I was getting paid really well, like very well as a coach. And then, it was at 10,000. I was doing stuff in the gym, and I continued to do videos. I was continuing to do videos kind of very, not as like, not as much as I was during the pandemic. I mean, during our time of lockdown. So last year, this time, I'm at about 25,000 subscribers, 30,000 subscribers. No, 25,000. And I went to Greg. I'm like, Greg, listen, in hindsight, because his channel now is at 300-something thousand. I think he had 300. I think he had 300-something thousand, no more than that, because he was on his million this time last year, or whatever. He's on his way to a mill. And I was like, hindsight, when would you have hired help? Like basically like help to like do like videos, like hire like myself, whatever. He's like, I would did it at 30,000 subscribers, because at 30,000 subscribers, I was getting really busy and it was getting overwhelming, because he's getting so many clients and he couldn't just, he needed time to, he couldn't edit, whatever this and that.
Somebody
so
to help out, most definitely.
So I was like, I'm like, okay, cool, because I'm at 25,000. It's getting freaking busy, and this was last year, this time, like around February actually, and I hired my brother, and then and my other editor Lewis, and then I hired someone to help me with like my getting my diets ready, like so like going through my emails, like you just like, you got a client. Here's this, because we didn't have a system at all. Like, not that it was just like a very basic system.
You got this, I got this, let's
like,
do it.
Very basic system, right? I didn't have a website at the time. I was like, I think I got a Fiverr website, but it was like very basic. And that just skyrocketed. The second I could do more videos and put into just getting Greg's like, you need to be behind the camera, and that's it. And pay someone to help you out so you can do nothing but videos and diets. That's all you need to do. And I'm like, okay. So I was like, I'll do that. And I finally was like, all right, cool. And then it just skyrocketed. And I put out the content that, that I wanted to. Then I kind of found this like niche kind of like content I do is coaching up. And it was something I want to do because I didn't want to be so much of a reaction channel. And I didn't want to do natty or nots, because like it wasn't my thing. I saw the backlash that Greg was getting on natty or nots. And I just don't agree. Like, not that I don't agree with him. It's just like, I don't want that extra that comes with it. Whether or not you're doing it nice to someone or not, it's always going to be perceived as you're attacking somebody. And I don't 100%. Want to like, 100%. So I was like, I'm going to do coaching up. I'm like, coaching up is I can take bigger YouTubers and I can break down their form and then explain to the audience how to do the form properly, or give them the kind of bridge the gap of information. So like, when people are watching YouTube and trying to get help and trying to watch their favorite YouTuber, they're watching them, but they don't know why they're doing what they're doing or how to do what they're doing. So that was my way of continuing my coaching, because I love coaching. Like, I only have 2 clients I coach one-on-one now still, but I need that because I need to coach, because that's keeps my skill up. So that's basically what happened. It was like, it went up. I kept going. And then I kept upgrading everything. Like, I spent like a good amount of money on camera equipment last year. Up until last year, I went from 10 years ago, I couldn't afford my diploma, frame.
The frame.
My mom had to buy for me because I couldn't afford it.
What's up, man? Wow.
Right. And now this is 10 years later, this is my incorporated folder for my account.
That's what's
you know
up.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like,
Yeah.
like finally my
Yeah.
story I can tell, right?
Yeah.
But that's how long it took. Like people were like, oh man, like this last, like, dude, this started like 2012. I had a channel just for this. And like 10 years before that, there was mayhem of me trying to like figure my shit out. Like I went through this process.
People don't understand that, man.
No.
People don't see. It's just like they see the pinnacle of where you're at, but they don't see nothing.
And that was my goal, was to like, I want them to see, like, I was like, I'm like, yo, you better make it, because if you're going to show people how to get whatever,
you better make it.
You better make it or something. Right. So, so like, so that's why I've been like, I'm very like vulnerable and transparent about everything, so people can see. I want people to see the whole journey. You know what I mean? Like I've been consistent with being like, look, this is what's going on in my life to an extent. I'm not going to say everything, but like 95% of my life is very transparent. The 5% is like mostly things that I don't want to, you know, other people aren't involved because it's not part of it. Like it's my life. I don't want everything other people involved in my circus, if that makes any sense.
Most definitely.
Like my family's involved to an extent. You know what I mean? There's friends of mine who outside of, you know, YouTube, who people know to an extent. You know what I mean? Wow. But 95% since 2012 have been vulnerable, and I wanted people to see that, to like, you know, I want to be some type of inspiration. My goal is to one day be in a stadium to be able to talk to thousands, like Les Brown, or you know, Tony Robbins, or you know, Goggins, David Goggins, or you know what I mean, like you know, like that was my goal, because that's what kind of got me in the first place, and this was my like platform to do it. So and
you know, the funny thing is, we make plans, and they don't turn out the way we think they do.
No,
I love what you're saying, because I can relate. You said so many things where I was like, oh man, it's not just understanding based upon I know what you're saying, but I feel what you're saying. Because it's so real. It's like the same thing as with these talking heads videos. It's like I had a similar experience, but vice versa. It's like I realized, and I did a poll recently, because make a long story short, in my case, I was like, okay, I was doing these reactions because they blew up. And I thought, okay, if they blow up, you got to follow up. All of a sudden, I see they're tanking again with the views. And then I'm like, okay, let's do a poll, because I did one video where I was like, okay, this video, like you said, this is supposed to get a lot of views. I think this is a good reaction, blah, blah, blah. So I'm doing this, not getting no views at all. So I'm like, okay, let's set up a poll. And come to find out, 80% of our viewers want workouts and tutorials and no reactions. Reactions was like 7%. And I was like, what? How can that be? So, okay, so then I like what you say. It's like, okay, I thought I was doing Ronnie Coleman and Flex Lewis videos, right? Yeah. But then, okay, that's what people want. And then you have to realize, give people what they want, right? Yeah. That they tune in for this because they like what you do in that case.
Yeah.
So you might as well go ahead and do it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned how Greg is getting that pushback on these reactions. I mean, the drama, to a certain extent, I mean, you know as well, the drama works incredibly well on YouTube. Yeah. But it also builds this kind of, I don't know, this strange community where people are always like, oh, you see this, react to this is bad, and I felt that, and I was like, I don't want that. I don't want to always point out, okay, see that this is not how you're supposed to lift the kettlebell, blah 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 blah. So I'm like, nah, okay. So I'm thankful that it turned out in my case now in that direction. So I feel what you're saying 100%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I feel like some of the reaction, like. And I think this is like, to not pick on Greg, but since Greg, I would say Greg is like the dawn of Natty or Nots. Like he made that. There's always been Natty or Nots. There's always been that, and he kind of like elevated it.
Yeah.
I find the issue with it is context. Is like, my channel is very vulnerable, so people see this person in any kind of video I'm in. So like, you know me, you kind of have this, like, I know Jonni a little more than just surface level character on YouTube. And I find that if you don't put that out, everything you're going to say is being taken out of context, because a lot of the Natty or Nots that I've seen, I'm not saying it's a Greg video, but the Iron Nuggets I've seen from Greg, I know Greg. I know Greg inside out. That guy doesn't have a malicious bone in his body. It's just people don't know his personality, and he doesn't show that part of him on YouTube. So when he is super passionate about, you know, somebody, you know, like I'm talking, like if I honestly, this dude is the most passionate person about health and fitness I've ever met in my, like, he takes things, like he'll be in a grocery store and pick up a box and be like, I can't believe they would just look at it. This is a matchup. This is false. Like, he's literally, but if you don't know him,
you're like,
you think that he's an asshole trying to pick on people. Like, no, this dude literally like thinks that is like, he wants to help people, but it's how people perceive. And I always say perception is reality.
Yeah.
Right. So I think like a lot of times that a lot of these reactions are taken out of context because the YouTuber isn't showing who they are as a actual, like, you know, they're vulnerable. I'm not saying they're being fake. They're not showing their actual real personality.
Yeah.
So like if you poke fun at something, then that person knows, hey, you're poking fun. Like Remington James did a video and people misunderstood his video for, you know, like they took it serious. And like, if you know the guy, which I don't know him personally, but I can tell that was obviously done as a joke. But if you don't know his personality, you think he's actually, you know what I'm saying? So like, and I think that's the issue we have when it comes to this platform is so unique because it allows people to be engaged. Yeah. And I think we need to do more of that. Like, because if you're going to be on this thing and give everybody this, then give them more. So they look at you more than just like this influencer. But like, yo, we're human beings. We have the same issues that you have.
And you know what's funny? Is that, and that's what I still sometimes think is such a strange reality. And why is this the case in the coaching world? It's like, you can't talk bad about Coach X. And then I'm like, it's not talking bad. It's just this particular person or coach has an opinion on matters. And we all know fitness is highly opinionated and highly contextualized and incredibly nuanced. So I just want to put out my perspective and put it in contrast to this other person's perspective. This doesn't mean that I want to attack this person. And sometimes you even think, how important is this? That maybe somebody who's taking bad form of a kettlebell swing at face value, they're like, okay, that's how you're supposed to do it. I think that person is telling me this. So maybe you need somebody to step up and say, listen, right? That's maybe not the way to go. And I love what you're saying. It's your personality is at the end of the day shines. If you are picking on people with a sense of, I think Greg's passion can be misunderstood.
100%.
Right? And I have this passion too, but I sometimes think, okay, I have to dial it down a bit, because then I realize, oh, now I feel it in myself. Now you're acting, you start to put on the act because you know it gets views, right? People want to see some drama in your face and some smile and some haha, some decent and this and that. And then it's hard. And I like what you're saying. We're human beings, so we have to understand how can we adjust the tune, right, to really fit the mold. And at the same time, I mean, it's a reaction. It's and people always. You see this as well on your YouTube as well. I mean, I guarantee you get comments where you're like, how did this person, how do you come up with this? Wow, I never said this, and I never had no intention at all.
I mean, like, and that's the thing that's crazy about it, is because, like, you look at your analytics, it's like people aren't watching the whole thing. They're gonna go through and that's why, like, we make sure we put timestamps in now, so we know, like, hey, if you want to get here, because like people don't, they have their attention spans gonzo. Like, they're not gonna, they rather listen to this doing stuff than sit down and actually watch the whole thing. You know what I mean? And so you only get, so I know, like, so that's why when I see comments that are just like bogus, I'm like, you watched about 2 minutes of this video, or if you move along, like, I'm not even like that. And for me too, is like, I don't like, I always say this to myself, like I say this a lot, like I was at a low point, I've been at the lowest point in my life where, like, you can't say anything to me that I already haven't said to myself way worse. So like, I'm not like, I don't get moved by bad comments. I see those comments, and most of them I can see that are like, I don't have trolls because I don't put out troll stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't invite trolls in, So I do get people who are passionate that have a opposing view of mine, and I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like I completely get it. Like there's a tribal mentality for a lot of YouTubers and their followers. Like they're like, I'll go to war with you on the keyboard, but like literally in real life, you're probably not gonna go to war with all of these guys. Like, you know, but they'll definitely go in your section and how dare you say that about my YouTuber? He's the best. He knows everything he's talking about. You don't know anything. You're just a bodybuilder. You did steroids. You know nothing about stuff.
You're piggybacking off of his views. Yep.
I'm like, yeah, I get it, because that's this. I get it. Like you know, for sure, you're completely valid the way you're thinking, and that's how you have to look at this. But at the same time, it's like you have to know that if you don't give your true, authentic, vulnerable self, in a sense, or transparency to an extent, everyone's gonna misunderstand you. Like misunderstand you. Like literally will like, because again, they're not watching the whole thing, so they'll take a piece and then they'll piece it together in their own filter, and then they'll like create their own narrative. And you're like, I did a video yesterday. I'm like, yo, this video was on basically, I'm not saying don't review people's stuff. I'm saying if you're going to do it with good fucking taste. Like, so excuse my French, but like literally, like you can say, you can critique us like athletes. Like I got Jordan Shallows coming on, and we're trying to get the date for him to come on my show, Muscle Doc. And he's from my hometown. And I know his expertise is more superior than mine, but I know that I can add things, and I know he can, but I'm never going to be like, that guy knows, I don't like his opinion. That's no way. It's my ways. And that's the weird kind of way people are. It's like, look, if I'm going to correct you on something, I'll correct you because I'm probably going to help you out with that. Like Will Tennyson, blew me away once before, and he was like, I saw my name drop the video before he did a collaboration. And he was like, yo, I saw a video of Johnny, because I did a coaching up on him, and he took my coaching up on him and applied it and shouted me out. I'm like, yes, awesome. That's how this works.
You did the same in my case. I checked out your video. I was like, because one of our subscribers sent it to me, and I liked it, and I was like, I love it when you know, people from we're in the same world fitness wise, but we're in different niches. And I love when different niches complement each other instead of warring against each other, right?
Yeah. Like I'm trying to learn. I'm still trying to, I don't know anything. Yeah. Like I don't like honestly, like let's be serious. Like we don't know anything. We know enough of what we know. You know what I mean? But like, I only know like in terms of like everything that encompasses fitness, like, you know, outside of just like, you know, training. I can put together great plans. I know understanding biomechanics and strength conditioning and all that, nutrition too. But I don't know nutrition as much as my wife does. She's a registered dietitian. Like I'm not going to say that I know as much as Jordan Shallow does. The dude's a freaking chiropractor and a strength conditioning coach. Like that's his anatomy, his knowledge on anatomy and biomechanics or whatever is from a different level than mine is. You know what I'm saying? So like, I fiend for that knowledge and wanting to know.
And you're not walking. You're not walking around with the scarcity mindset. That's what a lot of people have, right? And they're scared if somebody comes up with a wealth of knowledge that is superior to yours. I mean, it's so simple. If you're always the smartest person in your circle is too small. All right. And the funny thing is, when it comes to kettlebells, I mean, I have learned so much from these podcasts with these people that I've had on. I've had world champions on. I've had honored masters of sports from Russia on, who now live in the States. I had female champions on. I had Dan John on. I had folks who were, who were in the moments of the kettlebell renaissance in the 2000s when Pavel came up and the whole thing blew through the roof, right? I had people on and talk to them, and I consider them my mentors who were there from the beginning. Yeah. So I'm like a sponge. I take up that knowledge and I instantly apply it in the coaching, and then I'm like, wow, the coaching gets so much better because you talk to people who've been doing this for 20 plus years. Yeah. And then you're like, listen, maybe you try this, try that. And you're like, wow, well, this person who's been doing this for 20 years is doing me to do something which is completely different than I do it. Well, I could have said, nah, I know it better, right?
Easily.
And Switzerland, different culture in Europe, it may be different, an American, you don't tell me how to do stuff. And I was like, nah, let's switch it and let's try it. And look at it. I was like, wow, this works way better.
Yeah.
Yeah, just listening to expertise and learning from it.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Jonni, so let's pivot a little bit into, we've already been talking about the world of bodybuilding. And for those listeners and viewers, the kettlebell will come. I'm highly interested what Jonni's about when it comes to kettlebells. But since we have an expert when it comes to bodybuilding, I want to know, I want to talk about it. So, I mean, bodybuilding, I'm, like I mentioned before we started recording, I'm not a huge fan of bodybuilding, but of course, I'm a huge fan of Eugene Sandow, Frank Zane, Schwarzenegger, that era.
Yeah.
And then it kind of took off. I mean, we're all fascinated how with Ronnie Coleman, it's massive. We all love his videos. We all love the lightweight baby. Everybody loves it, right? But recently, many bodybuilders, young bodybuilders died, right? And I think the recent one was, he was also a YouTuber, and his name escapes me right now.
Boston Lloyd.
Yeah, Boston Lloyd. So the good, the bad, the ugly. What's your take on bodybuilding right now, Jonni? How do you view it?
Well, right now, so I would say after 10 years of bodybuilding, and I've basically, in end of October, I discontinued my testosterone replacement therapy dose. I haven't been on steroids, anything. I literally stopped cold turkey, literally.
Wow. And is this something that's advised? Just
no, not at all.
They say you gotta zone out, right?
You gotta come off, do your PCT. I did this on purpose to see how my body would respond after being on a very low dose of testosterone for about 2 years. And I haven't had any hiccups, nothing. And I've had enough, I would say, situations in my life to try my mental health. And it, and I went through it as you would if, in terms of response to death or whatever. So there's been nothing negative after the fact, which is actually pretty cool. So I'm waiting to get my prerequisition, yada. I did that because this year I tried to do another show, and it was the show that I competed. I did the show. I was a week out. I got sick. I caught a stomach virus. I was literally the leanest I've ever been for a show. I was literally ready to win the show. Literally, I don't care what anyone says. I realized I couldn't do it safe. There's no safe way to do the sport. There's ways you can minimize risk, but there's no safe way to do it in a sense. And it's not to scare anybody. It's for me to, I said the same analogy to anyone else. Before I got into, motorcycle, biking, whatnot, my buddy showed me, he's like, hey, he sent me a bunch of videos of people crashing. And, this is this can happen. This is what you're getting yourself into. So know that. So it's when I started bodybuilding, it wasn't probably I knew Dallas McCarvey. He was the first one I knew that passed away from a young age. And then it was Rich Piana. And then it was this guy. And it was this guy and this guy. And I don't know if I want to put it on the fault, or not fault, but the causality of, the fast ability to get fame and subscribers and likes on Instagram that want to get your pro card now, and then getting your pro card and being to the top now. Ronnie Coleman, those guys are still alive. Ronnie Coleman didn't start doing steroids till he was well out of college. Same with myself, I started when I was 28. You know what I mean? This is something that, it's so the, instant gratification is expediting these health risks that come with bodybuilding, because everyone wants that instant, I need to be the best now. So instead of taking the time, it's let's do the most amount of dosages. Let's do the, it's the size game thing. Guys are 300 pounds, you know what I mean? Literally 300 pounds walking around with 15% body fat.
That's the craziest thing.
It's not they're 50
low percentage
pounds fat. They're 300 pounds with muscle, abs showing, you know what I'm saying?
Crazy
veins, you know what I mean? So the sport is it's got so much beauty to it, and I feel most things we humans kind of ruin it a bit. We don't let it, we're so quick to see the biggest and the fastest, that the evolution of bodybuilding is the same thing. I want to see the fastest car. I'm going to make the cars faster. I want to see the fastest runner. I'm going to make the person, you know, when it comes to bodybuilding, we want to see the biggest and the leanest. The biggest, the leanest, and the driest, which is like the worst fucking combination, you know, health-wise ever. And it's like, you know what I mean? So I had to pull myself out because, you know, I love the posing. I love the show prep. I love the camaraderie in the back. I love the process was like it's like for me it was so positive and like I love it. But the extreme part of the sport literally is like if you're not tearing a muscle, you're gonna die, right? And I'm like, I'm not jumping from one to the next, but there's like, you know, it's like you go from tearing your chest or whatever from whatever, but you go from like that to like some type of internal issue. Like if I play, every sport has its extreme, every sport has its issues, as its, you know, it's dangers, concussions, you know, broken whatever. Right. But those are like things that, you know, I'll take you know, I've you know, torn my ACL. I'll take tearing my ACL over dying or having kidney failure or having liver, you know, I'll take all that any day of the week. And that's the problem with bodybuilding, is that it's at the height of the look that you see on in magazines or like on YouTube or Instagram, at that last day, those last 4-ish weeks are probably the worst weeks health wise, period. You know what I mean? Like it's not, you know, it's not something that is like, you know, and it's not governed. So there's no one telling, there's no rules. People understand about bodybuilding. There's no one's checking your testosterone levels. It's however you got to get to the remember when bodybuilder said, it was crazy about the sport. I'm like, what? I was training for the Arnold's. He was training for the Arnold Pro. I was doing the Arnold Amateurs. And he's like, you know what, Johnny? Buddy of mine, Aaron Clark, he's like, you know what's crazy? The sport has no rules. You make it to the finish line, however you got to make it to the finish line. And I was like, wow.
Even though we always hear drug tests, and so
there's no drug tests in the IFBB.
I know.
There was no one's drug testing in the IFBB league. Like the professional and amateurs, no one testing unless you're in a natural federation. They're testing, and they're only testing the ones who win. So like there's, in my opinion, nobody's natural. Sorry, like in the bodybuilding world, there's probably a very, very small few that are honest about being actually natural in natural federations. But there's, you know, in the IFBB, there's no.
And how much do you think, Johnny, from a perspective of somebody just being huge, right, or just being incredibly well built, do you still think, listen, if you want to take it to the levels of, and not, I mean, Mr. Olympia, we're all aware of this, but even if you want to take it to Instagram levels, right, where like, woof, these guys look massive, look great, do you think even in that case, listen, your genetics, they take you there, but as soon as you want to up the par, and let's just take Instagram for an example, you got to get on the juice.
You don't have to. And I find that like, because I did 2 years of like, you know, I did the, you know, when I started off competing, you know, 10 years ago, I couldn't afford anything. So like I was gifted a couple compounds, Mastrone and I got 1 ball of Mastrone, 1 ball of propionate. And then the last week I had a bottle of Trent. I had 3 bottles that last me, you know, whatever. You know, so I'd done the lowest from that standpoint to the extremes to be on stage with like Olympians, because I have been, to till doing the absolute lowest I've ever done. And I found that the lowest level I did still gave me extraordinary benefits. You know what I mean?
The difference was still so massive, right?
It was still great. Wow. But like the thing is, for most, it's like, now that I'm not on anything, and I've been on 2 years of 150 milligrams of testosterone, I have lost like size on purpose because I want to be more functional. I just don't want to be walking around 260 pounds. I'm 5'8". Like it's not 5'7", 5, whatever. I'm not trying to. No, it's not comfortable. But what's needed to look good on Instagram, I don't think people really need. I think they think that because people are rewarded for that in a sense.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like if people think like, oh, this YouTuber has, you know, or this Instagram guy has X amount of views because he's probably doing steroids. And that's where like, and this is like the I don't know, this is like almost like flip-flop. This is where natty knots are not a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, so people can know what is actually achievable and what's not. The only problem is people aren't honest about it. Right. So so no matter what, if you do an ad or not on someone, there's always going to be a speculation. Unless everyone comes out and says, hey, I'm honest, I'm on steroids, I'm not on steroids. This is what's actually achievable, and this was not achievable. Those kind of nano things are speculations, but they're kind of neat in a place because this is what we have is people thinking that you need to look a certain way, and how that look has to be done by steroids. It can't be a natural physique type thing. So no one really knows. So they think I got to do this. And so it goes off like, hey, if I want to go to the next level, I got to start SARMs. And then when I'm done SARMs, then I'll start my actual cycle, then, you know what I mean? And that's like, even with testosterone being out, it's like, there's, like I'm going to do testosterone because I know they can give me an edge. Everyone wants an edge, but what's required isn't needed.
I love
right.
This.
I'm
What's
getting more
required
praise from being natural or that route to being not on steroids and showing what can be done than I was on steroids and not saying anything. Because at one point saying anything about steroids and IFB was like forbid, like don't say. People are like till today, like older guys like, is Ronnie Coleman actually, was he really on steroids? I'm like, what? Is that a serious
question?
Like, but that's the thing though. That is a legitimate question people ask because they're misled or the information is not there.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So it's not needed. Like I told guys like Antoine Vaillant, like, Regan Grimes, these guys are fighting to be the best bodybuilders and they already have a outstanding following that I don't think they realize they don't like your fans don't care if you bodybuild.
I just recently saw this with a car YouTuber who recently posted a video about his mental health, and then one of the commenters was like, "Listen, man, actually, most of us don't really care about the cars as much as we care about you."
Yeah.
Especially if you have grown a following. I mean, if you've really amassed hundreds of thousands of subscribers and then it's like, listen, I think many people are tuning in for you.
Yes.
Right. So you might just well be. I think it's always great if you stick to your lane, but I like what you're saying, that you have to realize if you play this bodybuilding game for long, there are increased health risks. And the funny thing is people always are trying to fans are trying to mitigate them or they're trying to downplay the effects of steroids. And then I'm like, I mean, isn't it crazy that so many young bodybuilders are dying 30, 40? This is crazy.
Yeah. It's just because like I always say, like, it's funny because people will kind of like actually put the blame on the pandemic, and I'm like, yo, people were dying young before 2019, just FYI. Like it's just, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they started with the shot and stuff. I think that he died because the dude took the shot. I'm like, guys, because
the thing is like, and I'm completely open and honest about this. I did it myself when I was doing the dose I was doing, whatever steroids. When someone would pass away, I would be like, man, they got to be done. They probably instantly, because I know we all do it, because that's how we justify us continuing doing it after seeing it.
In that
we're like, oh, he was doing way more than probably me. Like he was probably doing way more. Like, meanwhile, I'm still doing 1,000 milligrams. I'm doing a gram of test only, not only the other compounds, but I'm like, no, not me. He's probably doing like triple of mine because, and we do that. That's how we justify it. And people won't admit that. But like, look, if I see you in a sport and I know, and you're young, you're dying younger than me, and you continue to do it at the level you're doing it, it's like you're literally turning a blind eye. You're justifying it, and I'm being tell like it is, man. You're justifying in your head of why it's okay for you to still do it and push the envelope, because it's not going to happen to you. Everybody probably said that at one point, and they're probably, you know what I mean, before they have a heart attack, or they die in their room at the Olympia, you know what I mean? Or they're, heart attacks in your 40s.
Yeah, this
That's
is
normal.
massive.
That's not normal.
This is not normal. And the funny thing is, we're in the fitness world. We're actually telling people, oh,
Yes.
you have to lift, you have to exercise, you have to get, watch your diet and make sure you're hydrated. And at the same time, people are having a heart attack with 40 years of age. This is massive, man.
So yeah.
And
I mean,
another question that I have, Johnny, if I just may interject.
Of course.
You said maybe we humans messed bodybuilding up. So my question would be in that regard, do you think it is the audience, the fans, that we're asking guys to push the envelope? Because one thing that just comes to mind is when the dawn of these monsters started with Dorian Yates-ish around that type of time, right? And before this, we didn't see these massive beasts, right? And then it was like normal. So where do you take it? Do you think it's part of the audience, part of the athlete? How do you distribute it?
it's the judging.
The judging.
The judges reward it. When Dorian Yates was on stage with Run Up Sean Ray, and Dorian had a torn bicep, Sean Ray has probably had one of the dopest physiques of all time. I don't care. Say what you want to say about the guy's personality. What I don't care. I judge the person in the sport, and that guy had a physique, beautiful, better looking overall physique than Dorian Yates. Sean Ray wins that year. We don't see Ronnie Coleman. We don't see XYZ because they reward. Because before that, they're rewarding guys like Lee Haney was.
Yeah.
Lee Haney was 230. I think it was 250, 260, 300 pounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's massive.
you know what I mean? So I'll put the onus on because the athletes can't. What is the athlete going to do? Okay, so this guy wins, so I obviously got to get bigger to beat this guy. And that's where Dorian comes. He wins. Like, I can't beat Dorian. Dorian's too big. Who beats Dorian? The next big guy. Then who beats that big guy? The next big guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Jay Cutler had to get that much better to beat that big guy. The only one who's going to beat Ronnie was Jay Cutler. And then my man, the Blade. He comes in, takes it away from him for a second, but then loses it and then gives it back to Jay. And then but then the physiques are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yo, Phil Heath was still 250 on stage, 240, 250. He's a big ass dude, right? So you're the top guys. But the thing is that there's guys in the top 5 that are smaller that they could still reward, but they're not rewarding those guys. So the athletes have to choose. Hey man, I'm gonna try to do my best. Like, the best example is Regan Grimes. Regan Grimes has a beautiful physique. Doesn't stand a chance at Olympia. Yeah. And he's got to go back to the drawing board and put on more size. Like, I competed with Regan. He's not supposed to be 300 fucking pounds, but he has to be because that's the only way he's going to break top 5.
And isn't it crazy that at one point the guys got so big that there was a turnaround for classic physique?
Yeah, right? It was. So, like, a classic physique was a very smart move to make because all of the classes that were put into the sport were to make more money. It was to appease more to the general public so more people can join the sport. Before, it was just bodybuilding and just women's bodybuilding. That's all it was. And then they brought in fitness. They put the athletic component into it. And then they're like, okay, figure. And then I'm like, okay, bikini. So there's more women that can, because everyone wants to be a bodybuilder. Let's find another way for women. And then bikini and fit and physique. All right, cool. But now the bodybuilding class is like, there's not many people competing there. There's not much of let's put in another class. They already had classic bodybuilding in the amateur division, right? So they put in classic physique. So you have a class that goes back to the old days of bodybuilding, right? Yeah. But it's just another class that people can go into, right? More people can bodybuild. If you can't be a mass monster, well, you can probably be, if you have good wide shoulder waist ratio and some good X frame, you can do men's physique, classic physique. You can do other classes. You don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to be a women's physique. You can be a bikini competitor. You know what I mean?
So you put the whole, let's not say demise, but you put the whole situation on what the judges wanted to see. So the system, the system,
the judges
right?
are the gatekeepers, man. They decide, because you'll go to some shows where some judges will reward more conditioning. Like there's shows where like, hey man, I'm gonna go to this show because this judge is there and they judge more of a that
But that's
tight package or whatever.
but that's an uneven system,
It's very
right?
extremely. But then when it comes to the shows that pay the most, because everyone's trying to get to Olympia and everyone wants that title, that look that's being rewarded is one that's being increasingly bigger and bigger. It's everyone, you gotta beat Ramy. How are you gonna beat Ramy? I gotta get bigger.
And
Everybody has gotten bigger this year. Will Bonet got bigger this year, bigger again. He was already big at 230. You know what I mean? So like it's on the judges. The judges don't have to. Now the judges also in like your league, they're going to see what people like, what sells. Now, bodybuilding 100%, no matter what anyone wants to like put in classes, that is the bread and butter of bodybuilding. People go to shows to watch the bodybuilding. They watch the freaks.
Yeah, yeah. So the audience wants that too. And what's crazy is, I mean, when we talk about money wise, I always have, when people ask me about when it comes to kettlebells, they're like, hey, are you going to compete in kettlebells? And I'm like, no, because the effort to benefit ratio is just not matching. I have to put in massive amounts of effort to reach master of sport with double 32 kg kettlebells at my size. And that's crazy. I mean, it doesn't matter how heavy you are. If you want to compete and want to become master of sport, that's the highest title, then you have to work with 232 kettlebells, right? And then you have to do a given set of reps in that 10-minute set. It's either jerk, snatch, or long cycle. So in that regard, I'm like, okay, so what does it take? I've talked to a master of sport, an honored master of sport, Valery Fedorenko. The guy's a legend. And he said, Gregory, you got great technique. Now it's just, if you would want to compete, you just need better performance. So he laid it all out. We had a great conversation. And at the end, I was like, see, that's the reason why I don't want to compete. Because the amount of training and the volume building that I have to go through to make it to a competition takes away time from my entrepreneurial activities, from my YouTube activities, from my time as a coach. I'm a trainer, so I work with people, and it takes away the time. And the funny thing is, so what do I get out of it? You mentioned that you tore your ACL in football, right? But I always tell this when people talk to me about competitions. I'm like, listen, if you break your knee and destroy your knee, but you got $10 million in the bank, I mean, okay, effort to benefit ratio, right? Yeah. But if you destroy your knee and you got zero, this doesn't work. So that's why it doesn't work for me, right? Yeah. And so when I pivoted back to bodybuilding, what I think is so crazy, I mean, the supplement industry makes billions, and yet the Mr. Olympia gets what, 300,000?
So again, like to continue what you're saying, I add on to that as time is a currency.
Yeah, I love
right
this.
For me to do a show and win a show, the time I put in doesn't equate to doesn't equate into the money I would lose by taking away from what I can't serve two masters. Like you can't, you know what I mean? And again, it doesn't, and I'll use Greg as an example because because we're close in our journey, at one point we're like, I gotta be, I want to be an Olympian. My goal is to, before pandemic, I need to get better and bigger. And by 40, I want to be an Olympian. That was my goal. I whatever. Right. And then when this happened, I'm like, because I thought that my, not fame, but like my success would come directly from the competition world, not necessarily being a pro, because being an IFBB pro has helped me immensely with this. Like it has, right? But I thought that at one point I needed to be a winning pro to be successful in the fitness industry. And when this, like in the last year, like I have a full staff, like you understand, like I have I have help, like, you know what I mean? Like this is, I have I got payroll, you know what I'm saying? Like I pay, like if I do a show, for the most part, most shows won't pay me enough to take the time away for the goal, the ultimate goal. Now people are like, well, I thought you'd do it for the sport. Look, I love sport. I got passion too, but when you got a kid and you got a family and it comes to time and effort you can't get back. So I can't put in time in something that's going to take away from the overall amount of finance I have for me to be able to continue to do what I love, because this has to be fueled. And on top of that, when I did my last show this year, I realized I didn't even make it to stage, and I made it to 100,000 views. I mean, subscribers during the time that I even get to the stage.
Yeah.
Like I didn't like I would do the show, I'm gonna win, and then get down there, could collaborate with these guys, and I was the whole collaboration thing, fix up. My goal literally, I was like, if I do the show, I know for sure I'll get over 100,000 views. I mean, subscribers for sure. I know that would help. And it didn't do anything. And on top of that, the prize money. And I remember being sick. I was rushed to the hospital 3 times that week. I collapsed before leaving to the airport. That's how lucky I got, literally. And my daughter's on my back, and she's like, "You okay, daddy?" And she's she's so sweet, whatever. And I'm puking and crapping, whatever else like this. And then, I'm sitting there sad, like, in my feelings, but then I kind of come out of it. Then I'm watching the show, and then winner, $5,000. I'm like,
really?
Huh. So I am killing myself for 5 G's in a trophy.
Yeah.
That it's not going to help anybody. Like, the thing is, what I'm doing is helping people. Like, what we're doing helps me. Me competing doesn't help anybody. Me talking about competing and being vulnerable about competing and transparent about it, that's helping people. But simply competing to be like, I win, yay! Now I win. I level up in the world of, whatever. Like, my measurements based on my accolades. Look at this. Now I got more. No, it's like you get more out of just like teaching and helping through like this kind of like very reciprocal relationship. It's like YouTube is a very reciprocal relationship.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like to take that away, and then I have like, business, like I can't prep for a show the last year I went through, I'm like, I'm not my best for my athletes because my mind is in this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm too tired that I coach every one of my athletes right until my show. Yeah. I had people competing when I was competing. I went up to, what I'm saying? So like, I didn't give them less time, but I knew that I wasn't giving them my everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like you said, you can't serve 2 masters, right?
Yeah.
So, and wow, it's fascinating to see and to understand that what you're sharing is so vital for younger folks. And the same, that's why I love talking to other YouTubers, because it's like, listen, this whole thing, the effort to benefit ratio, this has to somehow work for you. You must be like, okay, listen, I want to win all the shows and not get awarded any money, and that works for me, and I can hit the checkbox, and I'm like, yeah, that's it, I love it, I like it, okay, that's fine. Then the effort to benefit ratio works. But if you go into this, whether it's YouTube or bodybuilding, and even kettlebells, I mean, kettlebells is even a smaller niche. You have to understand, listen, the effort to benefit ratio, it may match down the line or it may not. And I think to a certain extent, YouTube may pay off at the end. When somebody's good at it, you have expertise and you hit the niche and you put in a lot of work, it may pay off. But bodybuilding, very small percentage, right? Kettlebell competitions, even smaller.
Yeah.
Besides getting a medal, right? Yeah. And people need to know this. This is so important to know.
Yeah.
Especially coming from somebody like you who went through these competitions, who did it, and now you're like, okay, I'm pivoting, right?
I mean, chase it. Like I'm gonna tell people like to not. I tell everybody like compete. I want you I coach people. I coach them and most people that hire me like, I want to know how to do this the right way. Whatever. Yeah. I got and there's I don't say like I know the way to do it, but I know like for me, I know through my experience the healthiest way to do it, which is mostly mindset. Like I don't care how strong or what your genetics are. If your mind isn't the right place in bodybuilding, it will eat you up and spit you out, and you'll have an eating disorder, you have a mental illness, something, because it's such a very individual sport where it's like you're in your head a lot. And that's the thing that is missing in a lot of coaching is that the coach is taking time to literally, you know, I'm gonna guide you through this. I'm gonna, like, I always make the analogy, we're going through a maze in the dark. I've been through this maze and I got a flashlight and you don't. And we're gonna do this maze again. That's my thing. I know where the corners are. I'm gonna show you what's coming up next.
Yeah.
Type thing, right?
Yeah.
And so that's my thing when it comes to bodybuilding, is teaching it the right way. But I'm also gonna give you like, hey, I went through the same process every new bodybuilder has. I didn't walk into this and I get it all right in the first. I hired the wrong coaches. I've been misled. I've been attacked. I've done all the mistakes and went through all the things. I went through the experiences of having coaches that didn't pay attention. I've went, all that stuff. So when it comes to this, like, I know how I wanted to feel when I was going through this process. And if I could have known what I know now, I'm gonna, I would have, but now I can just do that with a person I have. I'm gonna give them the best route to where they want to go, but I'm not gonna sugarcoat this thing and be like, yeah, man, like, when you do this, you're gonna be like a giant YouTuber and you're gonna get fame and glory. And like, I got literally 8 years of like no one, like, and I was a top amateur in Canada. Like, I won Mr. Canada. I was the best bodybuilder in Canada at one point, and even at that height, I didn't get exactly what I thought was coming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I'm not trying to lower the expectation, but I'm trying to give them a realistic understanding of like,
I love this.
Use this tool, but use it the right way, because it'll give you what you want, but don't think it's going to pay you for what you think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with kettlebells, helping people technique-wise. Most of the time it's general fitness, but we also had some people who were asking for specific technique advice when it comes to jerk or snatch or long cycle for competitions. And then I'm like, listen, I'm not a competition coach, but I know the exercises. And then, of course, I'm helping. Of course, because the exercising and all is great. And I think it also serves a lot of benefits. But at the end of the day, you have to realize, if you want to, for example, become a Denis Vazilev, which is one of the best pound-for-pound kettlebell athletes there is, first of all, this dude probably started fairly young. He was in Russia. So with Russia, they kind of, to a certain extent, understand the kettlebell from the earlier beginnings, right? So you have to understand what you're putting yourself up to. And many people go into competitions after 30 in kettlebells. And then it's just the realization that people do it for fun and they love it, which is great. And I do admire it. I'm like, listen, I think that's awesome. I love what you said about the mindset, because many athletes and coaches share the same thing when it comes to stepping up to the plate, when it comes to kettlebell competitions and kettlebell sport. It's a mind game, right? But at the same time, you're doing it for fun. I love it. That's great. Awesome. If you ask me about my personal opinion, I think for me, it's the effort to benefit ratio is not working out. That's the reason why I'm not traveling down that, right? But I still can help you if you're
100%.
interested, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Johnny, let's pivot for the last for the last session into kettlebells. So what is your take on kettlebells? Just general.
It's funny because like when kettlebells came to Canada, it was one of the gyms here. Basically, like there's like one main huge chain, and I was a coach at the time, and they brought it in, and you could only do it through their sort of. So I didn't really know much about it, and this was over 10 years ago, and when I got into bodybuilding, I'm a good athlete. I'm a very good athlete, when it comes to coachability and whatnot. So when I got into bodybuilding, I kind of put my mobility and stuff on hold. Like, I just went like an idiot. It was dumb. So I started picking kettlebells up for mobility.
Oh, I love this.
To help with my mobility, because I couldn't do barbell snatches or cleans anymore because shit's just in the way and my mobility is not there either. Right. And then I was coaching, and I was also coaching. So I had a good understanding, and I got some good coaching with kettlebells. And a lot of it is very transferable to like, Olympic lifting, like literally. So when I got into it more and more in coaching through just putting in class, and I would never say that I'm a expert at anything. I knew how to do a lot of the movements and be able to coach through the movements. But doing it for myself, I found that it was giving me more mobility. So especially my shoulders. So I would start off all my workouts with a little like Turkish get up. I'd do I'd do Turkish get up all the way up to the top of the top rack, and then I would do reverse lunges and go back down in the 5th lunge, and then turn to the side and go back up. And I would do that before I would start my lower body or upper body, whatever, to kind of get my body loose.
Wow. Yeah.
And I found that was like, I'm like, oh shoot, I can start doing the moves I used to love doing before that I can't do anymore. So I can clean, I can snatch. Yay. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I always knew the benefits, especially like hinging and squatting and like all those things. I love the kettlebell, having that kettlebell as a tool. And so I implemented that into my bodybuilding, into my work, like, because I found that there was a level of me that always needed to continue to stay functional, and kettlebells keeps you functional. Like, if like your range of motion, mobility, functionality, I think kettlebells is one of the best. I think better, more so than doing Olympic lifting, to be honest, because it challenges you unilaterally and forces you to adapt more so in a more balanced way, more so than if you're in a bar. We're always kind of like, we have corrections at our body, compensations that are very good at masking through bar work. So kettlebells for me was like, and then the cardiovascular muscle endurance aspect to it, like I would do like minute sets of certain things, or 45 seconds a minute sets, intervals, or like circuits. And I just love the ability to be able to hinge. I feel hinging and squatting way more using kettlebells than I do any other free weight movement. Yeah. So that's, I recommend it to everybody to, like, if you're doing free weight work, kettlebells needs to be in your regimen, like literally, especially if you can't. It's easy replacement for bar work, easily. You don't need to load your spine. Grab some kettlebells, do goblet squats. You're gonna just tune up your torso, your strength, everything, stability. That is better to doing this than it is front rack for me, right? It challenges you more through your torso. Like, you can hinge better, squatting. I just find it's like such a versatile. I shouldn't say sport, but like a piece of equipment.
Yeah,
tool.
Which most definitely is. It's one of the, and that's why people sometimes misunderstand it, is when they start comparing it with other tools, and then I'm always like, listen, you don't compare the knife with the fork, right? They do different things, but they're still in the same family. So
exactly, great.
That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
But what is fascinating to me is, so you've discovered the kettlebell way back, right? Or in your bodybuilding days, so 2012, something around
I
there?
knew, so it was right before I started bodybuilding. I was coaching at this gym, and there was a coach there that put on these classes, and he was great with them, and I just would watch, and I knew about it, and then we had our team coach before, our team therapist, or we had a yoga, we had like a girl that helped with like functional stuff, because our coach is into functionality and whatnot, and she bought,
and that was in your football career.
Okay. And she bought kettlebells in the last couple of years of my career. Kettlebells were there, and also we use it for like mobility and whatnot, for like doing like front rack and whatnot, and shoulder, like warming your shoulder up and stuff.
Yeah.
But it didn't really take it into that, like, into depth of it, until I was like, I want to be able to move. Because when I was coaching more, like, I got back into coaching a lot more athletes, because I was a strength conditioning coach before I was bodybuilding. I was coaching already before bodybuilding. So when I got into bodybuilding, I already had a strength conditioning background of coaching, and then I took on the sport and dove into that as a strength conditioning coach, and that mindset of how do you train for this sport the way it's supposed to, because that's what strength conditioning coach does. We train you to be better at the sport you do, right? That's how it works. So I got back into that when I was like, I wanted, like, I had an issue with my I have the deteriorating vertebrae in my L4 and L5, and it was from years of literally, I got bad lower lordosis, and I wasn't engaging my core, and I would anterior pelvic tilt to all tits, and then squat, my stomach's out, and I put weight
like that.
So grinding it down. So when I lost neurological pathway in my right hamstring, and I can't even dorsiflex my toe, I literally it was it
went that far. Wow,
it was bad. It was so bad. And I had to kind of I literally had to rehab myself back to the strength of my hamstring and whatnot. But one of the things I had to get into was goblet squatting, because loading my spine, it was just when I go down, that butt wink in mobility was making that worse. And every time I would squat, sciatic, killing me. Goblet squat, cores engaged way more. So I use goblet squats into coming back into, goblet squats, RDLs with, kettlebell gave me more activation and control over my core through those movements that I was having issues with doing bar work. So that's when I got into it. And then I started then after that part of just doing majority using it for leg work, I started using it a lot more for shoulder stuff, because my shoulders were just getting too big. And I couldn't just do regular ass shit. Do my freaking collar up. It was like this at one point, kind of stuff. So adding in the, the snatches and the Turkish get-ups and stuff were immediately helping my shoulder and that mobility and whatnot, giving me a better range of motion and whatnot. So that came in the, I would say 2015 up until, and then when I started coaching 2 years ago, it was in there a lot more, because I was teaching classes with it. And I found that kettlebells is the best thing to coach for people who are beginners and understand how to move their bodies around in terms of hinging, lunging, squatting, those movements and whatnot.
Yeah, so, you got it all down pat. And so you've mentioned something in the beginning, because I talked to Sean Mosen, which was, they call him the father of Canadian kettlebell training, and he's from Agatsu Fitness. So that was 2000. He's an OG. So he was one of those guys who went to one of the first RKCs from Pavel and Dragon Door from the Russian kettlebell cert, and he paid a crazy amount of money for it. Then he went back to Canada and he couldn't buy them, and the customs were crazy. So I think he went to a foundry and then did it by himself. So did you get some certifications from Agatsu, or did you get certified in that regard? And how was that experience? And
no, it was you basically got certified through a gym. It wasn't I wouldn't say that I'm I would say for sure I'm not a certified kettlebell instructor whatsoever.
If that even is a thing. I mean, the funny thing is, if you are solid with biomechanics and you're solid in the coaching area, and you got some education from there, then of course when you really want to take it deep on kettlebells, I think in that regard you can. But if you know the basic stuff like hinge, squat, press, I mean, you're good with the kettlebell, right?
So I knew I did a lot of Olympic work when I was playing ball and whatnot, and then when I was out west even. Did Olympic lifting classes and courses, but in gym course stuff, working through whatnot, practical, applying, whatever. And so when it came to kettlebells, it's very if you know proper form and hinging and squatting, hip and knee extension, flexion, and understanding that you can, but there's always those little small things that are a clean. Or snatch, those things that need more.
The ballistics, they need a lot,
So those things are something that, and I wouldn't, to be honest, for the most part, I would only do, if we're doing snatches, whatever, it would be with someone it wouldn't be in a class. It would be if you know how to, you weren't snatching anything, you were probably pressing, but you weren't snatching, because I wasn't comfortable with me telling you how to snatch in a sense, without having someone who's more knowledgeable than I am in that.
So, that's what I like as well. It's you gravitated towards, because in the kettlebell world, we always say you have the grinds. These are exercises like deadlift, press, squat, the RDL that you mentioned, just exercises that do not have the ballistic element. And then where the kettlebell shines the most is with the ballistic element, right? With the swing, with the clean and the snatch. Yeah. And I like how you approach this. Listen, we can press it, yes, but as soon as we incorporate the ballistic movement, maybe this is a little bit outside my scope of practice, then it's okay, let's just stand away from this. We can still use the kettlebell in that regard, because that's what so many people do, and that's why I started some of these reactions, because people are using the kettlebell and they're doing these fascinating moves, and they also create some strange moves, but doing the swing, the clean, and the snatch, and they completely, you see it. It's like when you see somebody posing, right? As a bodybuilder, you can tell in an instant if this person is experienced or not. You just 100%. See it. Me standing next to you be oh, that looks good, and you're probably nah, man, he's just starting out, right? And that's what it is in kettlebells. The same. If you are a coach in kettlebells, and you really dedicate all your time to it and you continuously work with it, you see it instantly.
Yeah.
And I like how you saw it. It's like, okay, with the snatch, just being a little bit careful.
I would literally go. I literally call a friend and they come to the gym and I'd be like, hey, let's work on some snatches. You know what I mean? And I'd work with her. Then I go through that because I'm really good. My thing is I'm really good at simplifying things for people because I've been around so many people like with coaching. So like finding cues for people to understand, like, you know, everyone's different. Their learning abilities is different. How they apply, or I know it's different. So I had to find ways to explain things to people for them to be able to activate a certain muscle. So for me, it was really easy to be coached and then be able to take what I've been coached and apply it. You know what I mean? So, but I wouldn't go with like, if I don't know something, I get no problem saying I don't know something. I love accountability is my best friend. I love it. I don't like, I think it's like, you know, when you master accountability, man, you are in control.
Yeah.
Like you're in control of your ego. Like, I don't know this. And I'll be back with the answer, but I'm not going to like, let's break your wrist with this swing real quick. You know what I mean? So
yeah, most definitely. That was fascinating. And that's why I see that you mentioned goblet squats, and that's something that I saw in the video. It's like you understand the biomechanics, and which of course a goblet squat at the end of the day is a front squat, right? So you change the biomechanics, you change the stance, your back changes, and everything. So that's what I really liked about your video, and I love what you're saying about accountability, just understanding that maybe sometimes outside your zone, and that's totally fine. You don't have to know everything. And then I love it. You're like, hey man, I'll be back with the answer. Right now I don't have it. Or maybe I'll let that person come in and share it with you.
Yeah.
Right? Referencing out, right? And understanding it. Awesome.
100%.
And you said, and one thing that you also mentioned, which is crucial, and I think is also important to understand, is when you are maxing out for hypertrophy, do you think you are bound to become immobilized to a certain extent?
If you don't put mobility at the forefront of your training.
Do you think it's possible to really become incredibly big, right? Build a lot of muscle and still have that kind of mobility?
Yes.
That you would have normally?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, because there's a lot of athletes that I know, and that's not like one of those like confirmation bias. I know somebody. I know like the muscle stretch. Like muscles, they stretch, they adapt. And there's if you put that muscle in that place of adaptation where it's always being built through with the full range of motion, you don't lose your range of motion. The problem is that I would say mobility to training ratio is way off. Like nobody, I'm telling you, I don't know many people who like I do a ton of consoles. I coach, like I see there's I got an issue with my shoulder, blah blah blah. What should I do? I'm like, okay, cool. So how much to stretch? Well, and I'm like, okay, yeah, right. Like no one puts the effort into properly warming up their body and then properly going through any movement through the actual proper full range. So if you're putting on muscle, there's guys who can, do the splits and, front and side, great overhead ability, like overhead snatch, grip, squatting, absolutely amazing. You know what I mean? Because they built the muscle through mobility and not building the muscle first and then trying to fix it after like most of us. I know they can, and it could be like, I can play devil's advocate as well too, because there's probably a point where it becomes too much, you know what I mean? And to be honest, like I said in a few videos, I still have about 2 to 3 pounds of useless muscle. Like it's just getting in the way. It's like like useless muscles. Like this there is. There's such thing as useless muscle. It's like a muscle. It's kind of muscle that doesn't do anything to you at all. Like it doesn't do anything for you, but get in the way. Like there's muscle getting away from me getting in the proper, whatever. Like before there was, because my bicep was abnormally big for show purposes. My biceps are still big, but they don't need to be that big. And no matter how flexible you are, sorry, that bicep's going to get in the way, right? So when it comes to like me, like even like motorcycle racing or running or playing football or whatever, skating, snowboarding this year, I've been snowboarding since 11 years old. I found I'm like, oh my God, I haven't felt like this in so long because my mobility, like that extra poundage. I haven't stopped snowboarding either. So I snowboarded when I was 250 pounds, 260 pounds. and still good and still kick it low, whatever. But the difference now in my athletic ability and functionality is like immense because I don't have that muscle that's kind of like it's unfunctional muscle. It's just like not.
I love this.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So you can
Wow.
definitely get, you know, bigger. Hypertrophy can work, and you can be definitely flexible with hypertrophy. You just have to make sure that your, you know, mobility is there, like
Wow.
just as much as it has. And mobility, recovery, massage therapy, you know, like chiropractor, like those things. Like if you're training and not like people are training 3 times a week minimum. Still, I don't care. 3 times a week, you should be seeing a massage therapist at least once a month, at least. Or
Yeah,
doing
I like
tissue
that.
work, you know,
Yeah.
because you're, you know, if you're building muscle, shortening muscle,
Yeah.
you're
Yep.
creating little micro tears. You're
Yep.
damaging
Yep.
muscle in a sense that needs to be worked through.
Mm.
Your car goes through, change the brakes, change the oil, rotate the wheels. You know, your body has to do the same thing.
That's why I love the kettlebell, because it involves the cardiovascular aspect, the muscle building aspect, the strength aspect, the mobility aspect, all in one session. And I always compare it to, I always say, with the training system that we have, how we train, I always say it, I call it the hunter-gatherer method.
Yeah.
Because as a hunter, you got to be explosive, fast, and strong. But if you want to gather stuff on the floor, you also have to be flexible and have to be able to move and hold the pose, right? That's what I see with coaching so many people. Is when they start hinging. So we start to hinge, and then they automatically, boom, come back up. I'm like, hold it.
Yeah.
It's the muscle has to overcome, yield, and hold.
Yeah.
So hold that position. And that's what I see so many times, that people cannot hold the squats without the muscles shaking or just not being in that. I always consider it like a frame when somebody takes a picture. Boom.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to be able to do. That's what your body's supposed to be able to do.
Yeah.
So, and we could say in that regard, if a bodybuilder is asking like, yo, well, how can I use a kettlebell? Well, use the kettlebell to keep some mobility intact while you're building muscle, right? And another question that we could also ask is, you need mobility to strike good poses, right?
And that's another topic we could talk for hours on. That like it's like there's no like it's and that's the other part of this, the bodybuilding that is taking a plummet is the end. Like kettlebells in competition, you're swinging kettlebells, like that is the skill. Like you don't care how strong you are, if you can't swing the bell right or do it, you're not going to do well in it. For bodybuilding, it's not going to the gym, it's not eating, it's not the cardio, it's you posing at the end. They're judging you on posing. So how is your posing not the best, better than your training? It's the skill that's getting judged on. No one's judging you like, hey, how many kind of sitting there posing like, oh, cool. So you've been doing bicep curls? Great. What kind of bicep curl are you doing? Okay, so
how many
points to that guy who does preacher curl. No one's saying that.
How much weight? Yeah, nobody.
They're judging you based on how you can display your physique, and you can only display your physique the best way is if you're completely mobile. Because there's positions that you see guys trying to do like a side tricep, and their arms over this, and they're like, oh, they're like literally like
because they're not able to go behind, right?
Because they can't just put their arm on their fucking back, and they can't flow into it right, and then they're sweating because they're gonna hold it, and like they can't twist their body right without their hips moving because they're not. You know what I mean? So like, it's bodybuilding needs a little bit of a make. Like there's a lot of coaches out there. There's some good coaches that will constantly put in some mobility stuff, but not enough that are making that the like, you know, like, hey, you're posing. When I coach, it's like, hey, activate your lats. I can't. So how are you doing back? You're training back and you can't activate your lats. You don't understand that shoulder depression involves you activating your lats, shoulder depression. You know, like, can you do that? No, then how are we doing a proper pull-up?
Yeah. Wow. And we have to acknowledge the fact that Arnold was taking ballet classes, right? So exactly for that reason.
I came from a dance background. Like I did break. You know, I can dance. So like that's what drew me to the sport. Is like, ooh, there's a performance part of this that I can like, you know, I can pose and stuff. Like so, I was, you know, I won best poser. I'm one of the best posing coaches in Canada, and it's like that part of it was like, yeah, sweet. I love that part, putting together routines and that part of the athleticism and being able to do. So I do a lot of guest posing and stuff like that. And, you know, that was the biggest part of it that I liked. So I hired, choreographers, so that's what kind of gave me some mobility, was the fact that there was that in there. And I have very responsive muscle. So like, regardless if I stretch or not, I have really responsive muscle, like when it comes to just stretching, because I've been flexible my whole life. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, we could talk about the posing thing
Well,
for,
yeah,
oh my,
but
geez.
yep.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Understanding that is such a huge part of the game, and people have to focus on it. And I love what you said about that. It's like, having a dance background, which I have as well to a certain extent. And that's what I love about the kettlebell when you train the ballistics and when you keep walking and working with it, because it's like, it's this, we call it the lumbo-pelvic rhythm, especially when swinging and hinging a lot.
Yeah.
And then you really have to, that's the crazy thing about the kettlebell and the ballistics, which make it so unique, is the momentum. The ballistic element is something that's so hard to control.
Yeah. Yeah.
The grind element is easy, okay? Bring it up, bring it down, that's it,
Yeah.
right? But with the ballistic element, you have to flow with the weights.
Rhythm.
You have to synchronize your breathing. You have to
Yeah.
go into locomotion. That's the beauty of the kettlebell.
Yeah. It's a performance. There's a
It's a
performance
performance,
aspect.
yeah.
In most, like, when I train, I perform.
Love it.
For me, I perform because I know eyes are on me, and I know that. I know for a fact that going to the gym, someone's watching me for sure. Just because, before I was a big bodybuilder, people know who I am around here. And then now I'm YouTube, whatever. So when I go around, I perform, not to like put on a show, but to put on like a showcase of how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it
Most
keeps
definitely.
it keeps my
love
accountability
this.
of me, like, keep your form nice. Everybody's
Yeah.
watching. You're
Yeah.
the guy who talks about form. Make sure your form's on
A
point.
role model. Yep.
You know what I mean? So that's my,
Yeah.
there's always performance, but like, yeah, kettlebell, the swing, there's like a certain level of like it's like very methodical. You know what I mean? Like, it's melodic. It's like, it's like,
Yeah. Exactly.
you can, and you're breathing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll do when I do kettlebell swings and whatnot, music. If people like, if I could, I wish I could put the music that I'm listening to on my YouTube channel when I'm doing my YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, I'm doing my tempo to the tempo of the song.
Love it.
Because I'm a musician, so like, I know I can keep a 4/4 time in my head, whether
Yeah.
it's 120 beats per minute or 80 beats.
And I think that's something that's also important to understand, because I see when we teach people, some who have some trouble with their kinesthetic sense, they also have some problem with rhythm. And then you have people who are kinesthetically gifted and they automatically feel the rhythm. It's like they understand when the kettlebell drops and gravity does its thing, that you have to wait before you engage in the hinge. You have to wait with your breathing, and you have to breathe in when it drops, and you have to connect.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. And I like what you said about performance. It's like when you're out there lifting, then you are the role model. And I think it's such a crazy idea that some coaches even think that we don't have to be role models in that regard. I don't know if you're familiar with this discussion, but this sometimes comes up when I talk to other coaches, where it's like, I'm not supposed to be a role model all the time. And I'm like, listen, you work in the transformation business, you work in the fitness business. You know what we get judged on?
Yeah.
Right? And not just this, also your form. If your swing is off and you call yourself a coach, but the funny thing, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but some coaches actually believe I don't have to put on display the level or the role model as a coach. That, if you're a legend, you're 60 plus, okay, and you're a little bit overweight, but you've been a heavyweight all the time, you're a legend, okay, that's something different. Everybody wants to get coaching from Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? But in our case, we have to be role models, right?
Yeah, 100%. I always say, like, shit trickles downhill. Like, it's like, for me, like, I always tell people, like, what I coach and my athletes are an extension of me. So like, my standard for my athletes isn't held at your expectation, it's held at my expectation of what I should be doing as a coach. So like, if you're looking for an example, look no further, you're watching me.
Yeah.
Right. So everywhere I go, no matter what I'm doing, when it comes to, in like a gym setting and whatnot, it's like, I have to, it was when I played football, we had this thing, like, you're under a microscope. You play for this, it doesn't matter where you're at. You wear your SMU colors. That's who you're under a microscope. People are watching you.
You're under a microscope.
Right. So like, that's how I look at it. It's like, I have to put myself on display at my highest value, so people can see that. And that's what I expect. It's not because I want it for everyone. It's what I expect for myself. I expect the highest value, because that's what I know what it's like to not do that. I know the ladder, and the ladder is not being in the position I'm in right now. I've been broke, poor, in drug addiction, not like food, eating out of a garbage. I've done all that stuff because I lacked holding myself to high. I put some things at a high value. I put football at a high value. I put trying to make somewhere at a high value, but holding myself to that standard of high value lacked. And that's the biggest change that came from me, was like putting myself holding myself to the highest value I can, to be able to give the most impact I can wherever I'm at, whoever I'm talking to. And that's just my value. If you don't have that value, hey man, it's fine, but that's you. Like that's on you. But if
you have to be and you have to be aware that if you're not engaged in this idea of living under a microscope, that somebody who does is maybe taking over, right?
Yeah.
That's what I sometimes think. It's like somebody said, I love this, it's such a great quote. He said, listen, if you're in the transformation business, you help people change their lives, you help people change their diet, you help people exercise, and you yourself are not doing it, you are doing it at your own peril.
Yeah.
Because maybe somebody comes up who does all this, and all of a sudden your clients are gone, your business is gone.
Yeah.
Right? Holding yourself up to the value, living on the microscope. I love this, man.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So on a final note, Johnny, and then we can wrap this up. It's fascinating talking to you, man.
Yeah, dude.
How do you train now post your, can we say this, post your bodybuilding career?
Yeah, definitely. I am like functional. Like I've brought myself, like I've been with a private yoga instructor since, like, I would say the end of August into now. So like I've reaped the benefits of that. I've consciously lost weight, came off steroids and whatnot to get myself in a place where my goal is I want to be able to be the best version of my athletic self that I can be. And there's that pursuit that is constant motivation for me, because there is so much more that I can do that my body hasn't been able to do in the last 10 years. And that's be that athlete. I want, I'm so, my mobility, I show people how good my mobility is now these days. Like I'll sit there stand up with my palms on the ground, like, yeah, look, check this out. Like, what I mean? That's for me is like, and I see the benefits of that in my training. So I was before, I'd be doing before I'd be doing like a push-pull legs, training each body twice a week, hypertrophy. Now I'm doing a mix of push-pull legs, but then my other push-pull legs of the week is functional. So I have one part that's hypertrophy and one part that's functional. So and that's all. And functional is at the forefront of everything. Like I need to everything comes after functionality. Where before it was, I need to look this way. But the thing is looking away is like the look of an athlete is a very good look. The look of a bodybuilder is a very good look too, but it's an exaggerated look. Oh. It's not a functional look. It's not even a marketable look. Like it's not something you can like relate to. Like, hey, eat this protein. So if I eat the protein, I get look as big as this guy. That's why you don't see bodybuilders in front of freaking what do you call it anymore? Like it used to be, but like now it's like you want to be that. I want to be a role model of like, look, I've taken my body from this version to this bodybuilder to now this ultimate athlete because I'm just changing my mindset and approach to what's more important in these times of my life.
Oh, I love
it. Show muscle is good, but functional muscle still looks really good too. Like athletes look good.
Sean Moses said it. He just wants to be a great generalist.
Yeah,
being able to touch all bases. Yeah, and I'm gravitating towards that idea as well. I love what you said because I have, in my opinion, a bodybuilding type of background where I was just pursuing hypertrophy, just like you mentioned, push-pull legs, and then make sure you have 10 plus sets for each muscle group and make sure you go all in. And now this kind of changed a little bit, but the funny thing is I'm still doing bench pressing. I still love the squat. I still love the heavy deadlift. I still love barbell work.
There's the aesthetic part.
Yeah. But the kettlebell, I think the beauty of the kettlebell is just trying to master the skill, right? In my case, a proper clean and jerk or snatching, or just being able to perfectly execute the lift is something that I'm so fascinated
I
about.
love technical stuff.
Yeah. And it touches all bases, and then, you know, I keep filming myself, and then I'm tracking it back, and I'm like, okay, this is where I'm still making that mistake, right? Okay, I got to get back at it.
Yeah.
And one thing, you know, you said in the beginning, you said, right, that you know, bodybuilding, especially at a high level, is probably deteriorating your health, right? So in my case, I'm thinking I want to do exercises and training that I can do when I'm 70.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. I want to be able to do this as long as I possibly can. Like, I want to be the dude that's 7 years old, still running around up and down a court with kids, and just, how's this old guy still running like this?
How's that possible?
You know what I mean? Like, you know, so, you know, like I said, I train, I've been doing boxing more because that's my cardio now, because I find that's the kind of cardio that kicks the shit out of you. Like, I can kettlebell swing to the tits come home. I can sit on a treadmill all day long. You put me on a heavy bag, that kind of cardio is just different. You know, it challenges a different way. You know what I mean? So like, that's like I'm doing the, you know, to overall add to the ability to, and I always like doing things that have such a technical aspect to it, because that's the pursuit of technicality is like forever. You're never going to be perfect at it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care who you are. Tiger Woods still isn't the best at his swing. He's probably still trying to figure, you know what I mean? Like that's technicality.
Yeah. That's what makes it great.
You know?
Yeah. That's what makes that's what makes the person at the skill great, thinking that I'm still not there.
Yeah.
I'll never be there. I'm just right.
Yeah.
Putting the notch up. And now you mentioned something as a final note, because I want to get your opinion, because you probably watched it. You talked about boxing, right? And we talked about doing exercises that for longevity. So, and I recently thought about this because I was envisioning Thor when he was doing the 500 kg deadlift, or 501, and then Eddie Hall, and then what kind of shape these guys were in. I mean, they were just massive walking houses, right? But incredibly not healthy for long term. Right? Yeah. Putting all this, I mean, Thor, his face, and Eddie, crazy. But did you see the fight between these two guys?
I did.
What's your take on it?
It was what I was impressed with was their cardio. I don't care if it was 6 rounds. Like, if you want to know cardio, go and I was watching Eddie. I'm like, Eddie's throwing haymakers. Yeah. Like, this entire, he's sitting there like trying to knock them out. Yeah. Really. When we do power punch rounds, those just gas you right out. And to be able to do that and just moving around constantly
and still like weaving and dodging, right?
And be that big. That is just a showmanship of like the ultimate athlete. That is, to me, is phenomenal athleticism. To be able to take your physique, that kind of body, and go through 6 rounds of boxing. I don't care who you are, try it. Just try it and see what happens. You'll puke your face off. I did it when I first started getting back into boxing. Literally, the first week I puked every single time. So we do power rounds, boom, boom, boom. Oh, it's coming, and I gotta finish the rest of the class. It's got 15 minutes left. You know what I mean? This is a class. This isn't a boxing match, you know? So it was they did good. You know, I think Thor held back the entire time. He played very defensive boxing, where, you know, Eddie Hall played the complete opposite, and then that's why Eddie Hall lost, because he played this southpaw, keep myself open. Like, technically they're terrible. Technically they're bad. But like, you know, technically they're bad compared to boxers. Okay?
Most definitely.
Compared to everybody walking up the street going and do this thing, you're not doing what they did. That's phenomenal. Phenomenal. So I thought it was entertaining. I think those kind of fights are pretty cool. I think there should be more of them. I would love to go in the ring with a couple guys. Love to.
The celebrity boxing, right? Which is, but, you know, making that kind of money. I mean, the kind of money that these guys were making. Wow.
So, you know, I mean, crazy. Like I would definitely, you know, I thought it was awesome. You know, just a great showcase of like athleticism, cardio, you know, functionality, like being able to do that, bring your body in like that kind of shape, the physiques they were. That's adaptation at its finest.
I love your perspective. I actually didn't see it from that perspective. I mean, judging it from that perspective, both of these guys were strongmen, so they were lifting heavy. So we all know if you are going down the strength route, acyclic heavy movements,
Yeah.
then you're not into the other part, cyclic locomotion, right? Where you are weaving and dodging and moving, because they don't work with each other, right? Or you're maybe in the middle, but But you're so right. Taking it from that peak, lifting half a ton, and then going down that route, completely the other side of the mountain, into lasting 6 minutes. And I think what you're mentioning, what sometimes I'm not a professional, I'm not a guy who's very understandable when it comes to boxing, but what I understand is it's not just the cardio part, is the other guy's trying to knock you out. So hey man, if you're showing weakness and you're getting gassed, lights off. So you have to Oh, fascinating. Great. Jonni, hey, I really enjoyed the conversation, man.
Same, dude.
Always having these great conversations with.
I gotta go over there and train with you at some point. You know?
Yeah, well, most definitely.
Yeah.
The world of kettlebells is dominated by two training styles called hardstyle and kettlebell sport. Although vastly different in nature, they have been proven to work and give you the most bang for your buck whenever you pick up a kettlebell, if you apply the technique correctly and are able to differentiate between the two. Now, for beginners, this task might be understandably confusing. With our upcoming hybrid style masterclass, in 100 lessons, you will embrace the emergence of the hybrid style movement, where you will learn how to combine the best of both worlds and become a master at handling the kettlebell. Join the next revolution in kettlebell training now and sign up for our early birds list to stay up to date and receive an exclusive discount on release week. Link is in the description.